everyone. In this lesson, we're going to look at how an HTML page is displayed on your browser. We'll look at the mechanics of how that page is delivered and then how it's rendered. So let's go ahead and jump into the material. In this lesson, we'll concentrate on two aspects of how an HTML page is displayed. First, we'll talk about the overall flow, and then I'll follow up with some definitions. So let's go ahead and take a look at the flow of information. Okay, now we're going to look at the flow of information of how an HTML page gets rendered on your browser. So the first thing that happens is the user will enter in a URL. And here's an example URL of mysite.com/index.html. And URL stands for Universal Resource Locator. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. Once that URL is entered, it gets routed over the internet via the domain name system, and the domain in this case is mysite.com, and it gets routed to the correct server, and then the server interprets that request and returns HTML. And it returns the request over the internet using the HTTP protocol, and the HTTP protocol moves over port 80 over TCP/IP. So that request gets routed back to the browser, and then the browser renders that HTML markup code that we're going to look at more a little bit later in these series of lessons, and then it displays the information to the user. I should note that it can move over HTTP or HTTPS, which is the secure version of that. So that's the overall flow from the browser to the server and back in a very high level type of way. So now we're going to go look at some definitions and drill down just a little bit further on some of the definitions that I've shown here. Okay, now let's look at a few definitions that we've introduced in the previous slide on the diagram. The first one is the URL, or Uniform Resource Locator. There are really three parts of a URL. The first part is the protocol, and you'll see HTTP:. This could be HTTPS, or it could be another protocol, but HTTP and HTTPS are the most common. The next is the site itself. In this case, it's mysite.com, and it's separated with the double slash between the protocol and the site. And then the last one is the file name, and it's separated with a single slash, and in this case it's index.html. So those are the three parts of a URL: the protocol, the site, and the file name. The next definition is HTTP itself, and it stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and that's what's used to transport HTML documents over the internet, and it's done on port 80, and this is done over TCP/IP, and we'll talk a little bit more about networking a little bit later in the course. HTTPS then stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. So this is a secure encrypted way to move HTML traffic over the internet, and it's moved securely over the internet on port 443, also over TCP/IP. And the last definition is RFC, which is a request for comments, and these are the documents used to develop internet standards for protocols. The HTTP, all types of things are defined in RFC so that the internet has some standards that it runs on so that it has the maximum interoperability that it can have. So those are some simple definitions, and we've looked at how the HTML file is delivered to their browser. Let's go ahead and wrap this lesson up. In summary, we looked at the flow of an HTML document over the internet from your browser, starting with the URL request, gets routed over the internet to the right server, turned into HTML, and delivered back over HTTP or HTTP back to your browser where it's rendered. And then we also looked at a brief look at some of the standards and definitions involved in that delivery. So that's really it for this lesson. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for your interest in this video. If you like the material, please click the thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more material like this, please consider subscribing to my channel. That's it for now. Thanks again. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.